In this Conveyancing Matters chat, we are welcoming David Keighley. Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property. David, lovely to see you. How are you? Mr. Keighley, lovely to welcome you.
That's fine. Thanks, Lorraine. Thanks for the work. Thank you for having me here. It's nice to be here and talking to you once again.
No, not at all. And Stu, you've not met David, which is surprising, really, because David won't forgive me for or won't blame me for saying he's an excellent legal trainer. He also contributes to the Law Society's Conveyancing Handbook. He's also a solicitor and has worked at high levels in legal practice for a long time. So David's the sort of full package, really, Stu.
Sounds like a man of many talents.
Well, yeah, a master of none, probably, but yeah.
You and me both, David. Make it sound lovely.
Yeah, we just talk about it now, so that's fine. Yeah.
So, David, you obviously have got all of these strings to your conveyancing bow, and the reason that Stu and I thought it would be lovely to have a Conveyancing Matters chat with you is the latest thing that you're hoping to do, which is to join the Law Society Council, and so I wonder if you would just tell us a bit more about the seat and what it is you're going for, and then we'll have a chat about why you're doing it.
Of course, Lorraine. Yeah, happy to. The Law Society Council is effectively the ruling body of the Law Society, and it's made up of a number of seats. Some of them are geographical, based on counties and regions and whatever, and there'll be one representative for that region on the council. But there's also a series of seats on the council which are reserved to what are referred to as practice sector seats. And residential conveyancing is one of those, and that's up for election this time round. They come round in 4-year cycles, and that's up for election this time round. So what I'm standing for is the residential conveyancing seat on council. So effectively, I would be looking to be the representative of residential conveyancers and the voice of residential conveyancers on the Law Society Council.
And that's Stu. I mean, PCS Legal is obviously a CLC regulated firm, but we were sort of saying off air, proper sort of knowing what's going on at the coalface and having that representation at that sort of level in the Law Society CLC is so important, isn't it?
Well, I think that's one of the big gripes I've got with the industry as a generalisation, is that there's so many people that make decisions and have input that don't have the practical experience that maybe people do at the coalface. So I think it'd be a great choice, David, having sort of been there, done that and got the hat. Your input would be invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've said in my personal statement, which will be going out with the election material, is that a significant number of people that do conveyancing, work in conveyancing, are not solicitors. But that doesn't mean that I think that possibly means, that their voice may not be being heard at the Law Society Council level. I mean, obviously, as I go around the country, as Lorraine does, doing these lectures and seminars and all sorts of things, I come in contact with practitioners from various levels. I mean, in many cases they're solicitors, but in many cases they're not. There may just be let's say, may not just be. There's no such thing as just, is there? But essentially, there will be the support staff in inverted commas, or unqualified conveyancers, or maybe legal execs or licensed conveyancers. But so their voice, which is important, and collectively that needs to be heard as part of the conveyancing process, is possibly not being represented properly at Law Society level, because essentially the Law Society Council is aimed at solicitors, which is fine, but solicitors are not the ones who are always doing the residential conveyancing. And as you say, I think that the people on at the top of the Law Society and in the leadership positions of the Vice President or the President or whatever need to know that there's things going on at the coalface which are directly impacted by decisions that they make about issues to do with solicitors. Now, I counter that slightly to say that the current Law Society Vice President has a residential conveyancing background, so he's more familiar with the issues than some others have been in the past. But that doesn't mean that there isn't room for an additional voice. And I think that's basically what I'm trying to do, is to say that it's all very well having people at the top of on the Law Society Council who are academics, or who are also looking at other areas, or maybe looking after their own geographical interests, which is fine. But the voice of those who are actually at the coalface dealing with the real problems that exist in residential conveyancing, I don't think is being properly heard. And it is that I would like to try and do. Now, I've obviously got to think that being realistic, that being a single voice on council doesn't mean that I'm going to have massive amounts of influence, but I can bring whatever influence I can bring to bear, with at least knowing what I'm talking about, shall we say, or hopefully know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I
as you
think,
say, I've been there, and I've got the t-shirt, and I feel your pain, is probably the best way of putting it. Yeah.
well, I think that's one of the things, David, isn't it? Because undoubtedly anybody that steps up to, frankly, any council to represent, as you say, a geographical constituency or a body of practitioners, they that is a fine thing to do. And as you say, there are many, academically very, very able people doing those things. But certainly from the outside looking in, and, I'm a solicitor and a member of the Law Society and all the rest of it, but I would just say increasingly there seems to be a disconnect and just a complete lack of awareness of, as you say, and it's a phrase Stu and I use a lot, the coal face, but what is actually going on. And I accept the sort of lone voice point, David, but that voice has sort of got to be there and got to be heard. And one of the reasons that I think you're such a strong candidate is because you're used to talking to people, and you're used to training, you're used to dealing with a room full of sometimes can be difficult people, and sort of making your voice heard in a sense. And of course, you're going to be too modest to say, but you clearly know your onions more than most. Apart from training, you contribute to the Law Society's Conveyancing Handbook, so you come from a position of sort of technical strength as well as sort of the practical voice, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, thanks, Lorraine. Thanks for saying that. But I think also it's important to appreciate that whilst I do train and contribute to the Conveyancing Handbook and write modules to the CQS, etc., etc., I am still practicing. I'm still very much part time, admittedly, but I do have a role as a consultant to a couple of firms, and I do sort of work very much part time on residential conveyancing. Yeah, still at the coalface. So I'm still experiencing what is going on in the real world, as well as standing up on stage sometimes and talking and pontificating about it. Yeah, so it's not that I'm sort of going on past glories and saying, this is what it used to be like in my day. I know what it's like now. I remember what it was like in my day, and frankly, it was at times it was better. It was easier.
Well, Stuart, you and I say that a lot, don't we? Actually,
absolutely. Look, the job was completely different, wasn't it? Even 10 years ago, the job was totally different than it is today. And I suppose it's that time that's passed and all the issues that have come up that make the role so important now, David. There's so many problems that affect, conveyancers that are doing the job day in, day out.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I mean, basically the demands on conveyancers are massive now compared to what they used to be. And I started training in the mid 1970s. I am that old, and so effectively, when I was training, there was none of this requirements, obviously money laundering and fraud and all the rest of it. But things were simpler in those days. I mean, it was always 28 days between exchange and completion. There was no negotiation. That's what it was. But then there wasn't such a thing as the internet. In fact, we didn't even use computers. It was all very much manual and hands-on, and everything was done through the post and all the rest of it. So it was a different world, and I appreciate that. I'm not going back and saying that let's all go back to using quill pens and writing on parchment. I mean, that's not that would not be in anybody's interest. But we've got to realise that the job has evolved, and not always for the better in terms of the pressure that it's bringing on individuals. And one of the things which I think is very important is mental health and morale of people involved in conveyancing. I mean, I've seen, I'm sure we've all seen, the burnout that happens to people. and the way in which it affects their own health, and it shows that the sheer emotional strain on people is causing qualified and really decent and experienced people to leave the profession. And that may well be causing part of the problems we're experiencing, which is that void is being filled by people coming in at the beginning of their careers who may not be being properly trained, or who may not have had the opportunity yet to be properly trained.
Well, Stu, something you and I talk about, isn't it? Is the and again, to sort of arc back to David's mental health point, which is so important, and I know that's something that PCS Legal are very aware of and very hot on. But just the difference with clients, the willingness to that complain, the rudeness, sometimes the abuse.
I think the whole thing is wrapped up in one big ball, because I think it all goes hand in hand. And that is, when you look at mental health and what the guys in the office have to go through, a lot of that is caused by clients' expectations being perhaps too high. But then again, when I look at the messaging that we give clients, on one hand, we say to a client, we can't talk to you about the condition of the property, but then we give them an environmental report that tells them about, things about the property which relate to condition. We tell clients we only deal with legal aspects, and now we potentially are going to comment on climate and things like that. We say we don't give tax advice, and yet we do stamp duty. So I can see why a client kind of gets confused at the messaging that we give and perhaps have these kind of expectations.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. I mean, it's managing client expectations is a very important part of the job, and I think that comes down to the heart of making clients acutely aware of what exactly it is we will do for them, and perhaps equally importantly, that which we are not able to do for them. And you mentioned climate change; that's is a hot topic at the moment. I mean, solicitors and conveyancers generally are not qualified to give advice on climate change. And that needs to be factored into the retainer, I suspect, into the client care letter, terms of business, whatever you want to call it, to make it clear to clients that there are some things which are outside of our experience and our knowledge, and we simply cannot help them with. But as you say, they expect us to be aware of all of these things. I mean, I'm sure we're all familiar that as soon as a client instructs you, you are now personally responsible for everything going on in their life. Now and any time in the future.
Forevermore.
Yeah, forevermore.
So, David, in terms of, I mean, we all know, frankly, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to comment particularly, but we all know the Law Society hardly has covered itself in glory with regard to, obviously, the running sword that was the Property Information Form 5th edition, mixing up with material information, which, of course, has now been binned by trading standards and so on. So, of the sort of challenges ahead, if you like, what would what's your position? What pitch would you be making in relation to sort of conveyancing challenges? What would you be thinking that the Law Society Council and someone in this seat would be and should be focusing on for the conveyancing profession?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, and the TA6 is frankly, it has been a farce, isn't it? I mean, that's to be brutally honest. It has come a little bit clearer during the course of this week, in that the Law Society Vice President made it known at a conference earlier this week that the material information aspect of the proposed TA6 6th edition is being completely scrapped. So effectively, yeah, indeed. So they've stopped work on the TA6 on the material information element. And it came out, as I say, in the course of this week, that the thoughts are that the 6th edition, when it's published, will be very reasonably closely aligned to the 4th edition. So it's just going to be sort of a tweaking and an updating of the 4th edition. So effectively, we'll be back to where we started. In terms of it will be a slightly updated version of the 4th edition, and everything which has gone on with material information will be just consigned to the bin. Which is probably where it belonged in the first place, because the reality is that material information, of course, is important, but the issue is quite simply that it was predicated, the TA6 5th edition was predicated on the basis that solicitors would be instructed before the property goes on the market. Now, I know from experience that clients do not want to engage with solicitors before the property is sold. Doesn't matter how many times you tell them that we'll be able to do this for you and it won't cost you anything or whatever. Frankly, they just don't believe you. Because they immediately think solicitors equals fee equals money equals expensive.
Well, Stu, you and I we've talked about this so much over the last year, haven't we?
So many times. It's annoying, isn't it? Because again, going back to people at the coalface, I think everyone could have told everybody this. Clients don't care about solicitors. Clients don't care about conveyancers and conveyancing. Estate agents don't care about conveyancing. All they care about is getting that deal over the line. And unfortunately, for the rights or wrongs, we're seen as a potential hindrance to that actually happening. So the chance of us being instructed when a property goes on the market, it was never going to happen. It would, the only way that would ever happen is if it was mandatory. We all could have guessed that one, couldn't we?
Yeah,
and this is where I think a voice like yours, David, is so important on the council, because,
yeah, absolutely.
And as you say, even if it's a lone voice, at least the voice is there and being heard. And if it's discounted by everybody on the council, at least there's an element of well, almost, well, I sort of told you so, and the points are being made. So David, what's the sort of what are the main sort of threads of your pitch? Why should a solicitor vote for you to take this residential conveyancing seat on the Law Society Council? What would you say are the top 2 or 3 reasons why someone should do that?
Okay, basically, Lorraine, because I am a conveyancer, and because I know what is going on. I mean, effectively, I am still very actively as a conveyancer. I mean, I appreciate that there are 2 other candidates who are also conveyancers, and they'll be saying the same thing. But equally, I've had experience going back to when I started training in 1974. I was admitted in 1982, and until 2016, spent my entire life working in residential conveyancing. And even since then, when I've stepped away from full-time practice to concentrate on training and other things, I'm still continuing to practice. So effectively, I've seen what it used to be. I've seen what it is now, and I've seen what's good and what's bad. And the fact that the conveyancers and the people doing the job at the coalface are not being listened to. And that, I think, is the issue, that essentially I'd like to try and be there to say, yeah, vote for me because I can be your voice, and not only from, I'm not in any way from some sort of ivory tower. I will be accessible, should we say, in that I'll be standing up before groups of people regularly, talking at lectures and whatever, and they'll be able to just throw back at me and tell me what they think is going on and what, if anything, is needed to be talked about. So I will be a point of contact on a regular basis for solicitors and those who are not solicitors who are dealing with conveyancing, and so their voice can be filtered, as it were, through the interactions we have as we go through. But I think equally, it's a mismatch. It's the thing that perhaps worries me most of all is the mismatch between policy and practice. We know before that regulation upon regulation upon regulation is being imposed, and we've said that before, and that's causing real issues for conveyancers. And there is also a growing mismatch between the burdens being placed on solicitors who, broadly speaking, are required to be members of CQS in order to be on panels, and CLC regulated firms who are not required to be on CQS to be on those panels. And I have to say, one of the questions is, well, why not? Why can't licensed conveyancers be involved in CQS? And that's possibly one aspect that I would like to at least question. Why, if CQS is such a wonderful thing that it's held out to be, then why can't it be made open to all firms practicing in residential conveyancing, to make sure, if anything else, we've got at least some element of a level playing field as regards to the hymn sheet from which we're all supposed to be singing in relation to conveyancing. I'm not going to tar all firms with the same brush. I mean, there are some really good licensed conveyancers and some really bad licensed conveyancers, in the same way that there are some really good and some really bad solicitors. I mean, there is the fact that I'm a solicitor, therefore I'm better than you as a licensed conveyancer, is complete nonsense. Yeah, that effectively we're both doing the same job. The models may be different, and that may be part of the problem, that the very large factory, inverted commas, outfits are not singing from the same hymn sheet and not subject to the same regulations for CQS, etc., as the conveyancing solicitors are.
I mean, the CQS is extraordinarily burdensome now. And the thing is, I think when it was originally introduced in the early 90s, I think the Law Society sort of expected, actually, the CQS to be just a ticket straight onto the lender panels. And of course, the lenders just never went with that. And now it just seems to me to be a sort of prerequisite for SRA regulated firms to even being considered to be on a lenders panel. And as I say, as you say, David, it's not a level playing field. I mean, the other argument is, well, you know, if the Law Society isn't particularly enforcing CQS, we always see every day on social media, for example, you know, large numbers of inquiries, for example, coming from CQS accredited firms. The other argument is, well, you know, should CQS be watered down and not effectively mandatory, you know, for SRA regulated firms, because that's essentially what it's become. But so, David, we could talk about this all day, but as I say, I for one am absolutely delighted that you're representing the voice of conveyancers and going for this council seat. And I do think, actually, and I feel the same about my position in general terms, in that I think continuing to practice as a trainer is actually really important, because, as Stu said, you know, even the last 5 years, practice has massively changed. But David, can you tell us then, because there are a few little hoops, when the voting opens and what solicitors who want to vote for any of the candidates, by the way, but what solicitors must do to get a vote and how that happens? If you could just walk us through that, David, so we all know what we need to do.
Of course I can. I mean, obviously, the vote is only open to solicitors because it's a vote for the Law Society Council. And because it's a practice sector seat, it's only open to solicitors who are recorded with the Law Society records as having residential conveyancing as a practice area. Now, the way that that's done is that the Law Society operate this system of My Law Society account, which is the sort of portal for information and training and whatever on the Law Society. So effectively, in order to vote, a solicitor must have a verified My Law Society account, and that account must specify that their practice area includes residential conveyancing. It doesn't matter if they do other things as well, but as long as it includes residential conveyancing. And the voting itself begins on Wednesday, the 18th of June, and is open until 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 16th of July. It will be conducted over the internet. Effectively, the people that are conducting the election on behalf of the Law Society, excuse me while I just check their name, is UK Engage. And they will be emailing people who meet the voting criteria with a ballot paper and the means by which to vote. They'll effectively be sending out the details of the three candidates and personal statements, etc. And those who receive the email will then be able to use the link attached in the email to vote. There's also, if people slip through the net, there is a process by which, if you think you qualify, but you don't receive the email, then you can actually request a ballot by emailing ballotrequest@lawsociety.org.uk, and that would, presumably you qualify, would generate the ballot. But effectively, the important thing to do is, if you are a solicitor wanting to vote, then firstly check that you've got a My Law Society account, which I'm sure most of us will have, because that's needed to access Law Society practice guides and materials, etc. But effectively, make sure you've got an active My Law Society account and that your profile on that account includes residential conveyancing. If it does, then you should get a ballot. If you do meet all those criteria and you don't get a ballot, then you can request it.
Oh, sorry, David, just tell us that the email again, in case you don't get the ballot and you want one.
Yeah, it's ballot request, all one word, @lawsociety.org.uk.
Excellent, thank you. So, Stu, I think, as I say, even as a CLC regulated practice, to have someone like David representing conveyancers at the highest level within the Law Society just is such an important thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, we can't all sit here and moan at the way the sort of job and the profession is going if we don't all do something about it. So having somebody like yourself, David, that can represent, people that are doing the practical job, and I think you said earlier, the difference now between policy and procedures becoming, greater and greater and greater. So definitely, I'd urge everybody to have a look at it.
Oh, well, David, I just wish you, every luck, and because I don't think people realise sometimes, and as Stu said, we sit and pontificate, but actually being prepared to step up, do it, take on the work, and also, as you said, and I think this is an important point actually, be prepared to be accountable, because whether you like it or not, you are a very public face of the conveyancing profession, and people in conveyancing see you every day of the week. And you see a wide range of conveyancers and solicitors all across the country every single week. So you're kind of really putting yourself out there, because if solicitors are irked about what's going on in the Law Society, you are going to get it in the neck in a way that other people might not. And so I'm, massively, massively respect you for that. And just sort of wish you every luck with the ballot, really, David. But I think, frankly, whether you get it or not, I think to even be prepared to step up is a fantastic thing. So, I mean, in sort of, perhaps to close, David, are there any sort of, final points you'd like to make before we wish you farewell?
No, I think we've covered most of the things. I mean, the point, yeah, you're right, and clearly, I'm putting myself up there. I'm already seen as a bit of a face of conveyancing, as you say, and if it gets a seat on the council, then that becomes perhaps even more higher profile, and brings with it the disadvantage of being accountable for things which I'm not really accountable for. But essentially, the bottom line is that my hope is to be the voice of conveyancers and to represent conveyancers. But if I am not successful, and one of my the other candidates is successful, and I would wish them all the best. But I would continue to carry on trying to be the voice of the conveyancers at the coalface, and continue to be happy to take on board people's comments and try and represent them in the best way that I can. And I was a thorn in the side of the Department of Levelling Up with regard to the Building Safety Act. I'm quite sure there's a picture of me in the lobby of the government department, basically saying, "Do not allow this man in this building."
But with some darts.
With some darts on it, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, but essentially, I've been a critic of a number of things. And I, insofar as I can, I will continue to be critical where it needs to be criticised. And I'm not going to say everything's wrong, everything's bad, everything's some things are good, but where things need to be held to account, I would like to be able to do that. So I'm not a Superman. I appreciate that. I'm a bruised conveyancer, and I've got the scars, and I want to sort of stand up in council and say, look, these are the scars. So this is what I've been going through, and this is what my colleagues are going through.
No, I think that's a phrase that we can nick, Stu, isn't it? I'm a bruised conveyancer. I think that's something that we all feel. Well, David, it's really wonderful to see you. And as I say, we set this up at relatively short notice. So I certainly wish you absolutely all the best for the election, as indeed I'm sure you do, Stu.
Absolutely, yeah. Good luck, David.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks for joining us, David. You
take
care.
Nice to see you. I dare say we'll cross swords on the circuit sometime very soon.
I'm sure we will. Take care now.
And you take care.
Bye.
Bye.